Hello YouTube and Patreon, this is Nathan P. Butler, and this is our project update for the month of April 2022. My apologies up front if I don't seem quite myself. I think I probably will. I don't know that anybody would have noticed that I'm not feeling all that great today. So, we're going to take a look here at stuff that has come out over the last month, what is coming out soon, and in the end, and sort of the latter part here, I want to address a couple things relating to the Patreon, including a little bit more about my current thoughts on its future and whatnot. But we'll hold that till the end because that's probably only of interest to those who are more interested in sort of, where are things standing, as opposed to it being those who are like, what just came out? What's coming out soon, right? Which is kind of more of the gist of what these videos are meant to be. So even though we will talk about sort of those Patreon-related issues later, we will start with Patreon as we always do. Again, that is patreon.com/NathanPButler. Let me thank all of you who are backers over there. We have the $1 tier, the Travelers Through the Butlerverse, who get thanks in videos like these. And if there is ever like a supplemental edition or something for a Saga on Home video again, or something like that, or a third edition, though I can't imagine that full-blown type of thing actually happening, they would get a thanks there as well. That's been removed from the description because I can't say for sure that's going to happen. The Travelers, though, who get thanked here, get a chance to kind of see their name in the credits and hear it out loud while it is still a manageable number, include David Bittner, John Sullivan, Kai Jacoby, Story Mode, Travis Cook, Justin Richard, Jeremy Goss, Ben Abrams, Michael Torson, Jacob Kapoor, Tony Jenkins, Kevin Kriener, and Austin Pierce. We then have the Denizens of the Butlerverse. These are the $5 tier folks who get what the $1 tier gets, but also gets those audio commentaries that I produce. Again, I have produced ones for all 4 of the collected volumes of Forces of Destiny, and I'm in the process of basically the latter stages of the Clone Wars, where there have been 2 Clone Wars commentaries released month after month after month since I believe October of 2017. That'll be finishing up around this time next year with the entirety of the Clone Wars available in commentary form. But there are 2 for sure each month, typically on the 1st and the 15th. And then eventually there will be Star Wars Visions as well. I'll be recording that sometime soon. Can't say exactly when, but we will come back to that in just a moment. But my thanks to those who are members of the Denizens of the Butlerverse. This includes Craig Clayton, Jeff Rabjohns, Matt DeRocher, who I'm finally saying correctly again, Walker Langstadt, Kyle Pellery, Joey Zitzman, Stephen Malicia, Robert Medina, Bobby Craig, Jeremiah Mustard, Jaina Keller, and Aaron Melzak. Then we have the Nobility of the Butlerverse. That is the $10 tier. These folks get what the Denizens get, plus more, and that more is those monthly exclusive Q&A videos, specifically on topics they bring up, topics they bring to the table with sort of more long-form, informal answers than what you might see with, say, one of the Q&A episodes from the Star Wars Home Video Library, or the new mini Q&A episodes that have sort of revived that series, as we'll talk about here in a moment. They include Sky Tri Pallasmere, Connor Steyerman, Matthew Hardesty, Ennis, Big Mac Davis, Jonathan Comfer, Sam Howard, Andrew Bettis, and Benjamin Handelman. Now, our last update was posted on March 22nd of 2022, so as you would expect, in the time since then, there have been 2 new releases of commentaries on the Patreon. That was the Clone Wars episode The Unknown, and the commentary for the Clone Wars episode Conspiracy. So yes, we are into Season 6, The Lost Missions, now. I will talk more about what's coming up here in just a second. We did also, of course, have the exclusive Q&A video number 52 for the Nobility of the Butlerverse, which was on April 4th. And again, as I think I've said before, for those who are interested in this sort of thing and thinking about maybe jumping into the Patreon, remember, if you jump into a certain level, you get access to everything that level basically has ever gotten through the site, at least. So it's not that if you jump in now, you only get future Clone Wars commentaries. You get access to all the previous ones and Forces of Destiny and so on. If you jump in at the Nobility tier, you get access to all those previous Q&As and whatnot. Though, how interested you'll be kind of depends, I guess, on what the topics would be for those Q&As. As for what is coming up, so let's see. So on May 1st, we have the Clone Wars commentary for Fugitive that'll come up, and then we will wrap up that Order 66 arc, that first arc of Season 6 on May 15th with Orders. That then jumps us to June 1st, where we're going to get the beginning of the Clovis arc with An Old Friend, and on June 15th, The Rise of Clovis. That then gets wrapped up, that arc, on July 1st with Crisis at the Heart. And on July 15th, we get the beginning of the Weird Jar Jar and Mace Windu buddy cop kind of arc, which is The Disappeared Part 1, which finishes on August 1st with The Disappeared Part 2. We then jump in to that last arc of Season 6, which is basically, depends on how you look at it. It's either sort of like a weird sort of standalone with the Lost one, and then the 3 episodes after it are an arc in and of themselves, or as most people think of it, even though Lost one is less connected, it is a 4-episode arc that deals with sort of big Clone Wars era concepts. We start that out, if you want to think of it as 4, with the Lost one on August 15th, and then Voices on September 1st. Now, the last 2 episodes of Season 6, I actually have recorded the commentaries for. I'm done with Season 6. I just haven't edited them yet. So that'll be hopefully edited sometime this week and plugged in. So the last 2 episodes of Season 6, the last 2 episodes of that last arc with Yoda and everything, should be on September 15th and October 1st for those. And then, of course, we get into Season 7. I have my notes now ready for Season 7. It took a little bit because one of the things I'm going to cover in the notes for Season 7 when I do the commentaries is whenever Maul shows up again at the end of Together Again, or in the midst of Together Again, at the end of that commentary, since that's when he shows back up, that's when I'm going to go into detail on spoiler territory as a separate section about what happens in Son of Dathomir between the last time we saw him in that series and when he showed up again in Season 7 as kind of like a bridging type of thing. What I've done is I've sort of scripted out the spoiler stuff, so it is ready to go, and that was the last thing I needed to really get ready to be able to start recording commentaries for Season 7. And these will be a little bit different. I'll have to tweak the opening to be a little bit more like I did with Forces of Destiny, because of course you can't use a Blu-ray or DVD copy to do commentaries for those because they're not available on DVD or Blu-ray or anything else except for Disney Plus at this point. So those will be coming soon. I'll be recording those and more about what that means for the future of the Patreon coming up. And of course, if you're a member of the Nobility of the Butler Universe, I will be recording your exclusive Q&A sometime shortly after the beginning of May for the month of May. So if you have any questions you want to ask for that one, feel free to drop them into the question collection thread on Patreon for April 2022. Okay. All that said, let's see. We did have a little bit more activity on YouTube this time than we usually do, at least than we have in the recent past, I would say. I keep looking at the screen being like, do I need to move? Do I need to scoot? I feel like I'm not centered right. Or should I do like the thirds thing? Anyway, so let's see. So we had one regular episode of From the Star Wars Home Video Library released since the last update. That was a supplemental episode, so kind of a regular episode, episode 411.1. That was looking at the Harrison Ford AFI Life Achievement Award book and bag. So we looked at the book, the bag, the folder full of content back in 411 that includes like the slides and everything, sort of promoting the event and tied into the event. I guess it was given at the event. But we still don't have any confirmation as to whether there was ever an actual VHS set for Harrison Ford at that event, the way there was the DVD set for Lucas and then the Blu-ray set for John Williams. So still waiting to actually get confirmation of whether there is a VHS set or not, but at least we've had a chance to look at more of the swag from that event, which of course ties into my interest in that sort of thing thanks to Lucas and Williams, which of course you see over here and over here with their home video sets. Then, of course, I had recently started that new series of Q&A videos specifically for From the Star Wars Home Video Library to talk about Star Wars Home Video stuff. Another of these sort of, gosh, there's just not a lot of new Star Wars Home Video stuff coming out, and I don't want to just cover the weird stuff like parodies, which I will start doing soon once I get a chance to do more research and take more notes on them. So let's do some side series, right? So we had the top 5 videos. We're going to do more of those. And now we've also got those Q&A videos. We'd previously done 2 of those, so in the last month, we actually worked our way through 3 more. Q&A number 3, 4, and 5. So if you want to have questions answered in one of those, the key here is always look for the newest one, right? So currently the newest one, as of the time I'm recording and uploading this, which is the weekend of the 24th of April, you're going to find that the newest one is number 5. So you post questions in the comments of number 5, I could use them then for number 6, and so on and so on and so on. And unless one of them gets really loaded up with questions, it'll always be that one answered in the next one as opposed to that one answered in several subsequent episodes. So put them in the newest one, and then I can use them for the next. But if at this point, say you asked questions in the comments to like the first one, I'm not going to be looking there to grab questions when I record future ones. I'm always looking at the newest ones. And that applies to another thing that actually has returned to the channel. A little bit more about sort of looking at what's happening with the channel here in just a moment. But suffice to say, one of our old series is back. So one of the series that I did on this channel for a short time, probably like less than 6 months, I guess, that ran from, I believe, November of 2018 until April of 2019 was the so-called mini Q&As. It was basically Q&A episodes designed to be short that would use questions posted by viewers to answer in each subsequent episode of the mini Q&A. So kind of like the From the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&As that just started up recently, except these were on like broader topics. And now I have brought that back for anything that doesn't fit under the banner of From the Star Wars Home Video Library. So general Star Wars, general sci-fi, education stuff, board game stuff, whatever, right? My comment at the time was that I would try to answer as many as I could, and that I would be answering questions that don't put my marriage or career in jeopardy, I think is the way that I put that. But basically just trying to answer questions and kind of have those quick conversations. They're designed to be shorter in length, each of them being about 15 to 20 minutes, give or take. So my answers are not as robust, long-winded, kind of well thought out as they might be for something like the Nobility of the Butlerniverse monthly exclusive Q&A episodes. And they are asked from all over, and I can't guarantee answering all of them. But I'm trying to get back into that now. I thought, again, that's another thing to give more content for the channel when the Star Wars Home Video stuff has really kind of slowed down quite a bit. So, in April 2022, we have brought back that series, and there have been 3 new episodes, 15, 16, and 17, continuing the original numbering that left off with 14 back in 2019. So, as of right now, as I'm recording this, and as of when I'm uploading this, if you want questions answered on a future mini Q&A episode in round 2 of those, you should ask your questions in the comments on any of those round 1 episodes, 15, 16, or 17. The way I'm going to do it is basically let you know what round each one is, because I typically will record multiple on the same day, and it'll all be about what shirt I'm wearing so you can tell which round is which. So those 3, 15, 16, 17, those are me wearing the Bad Batch shirt, right? If I was recording any today, which I'm not, it'd be the Rick and Morty shirt, and so on and so on. But that's one of those where if you have any questions that are non-Star Wars Home Video related, that's where to put them. If it's Home Video related, put it on the most recent From the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&A episode, which again in this case is number 5. But thinking ahead for the, I know we already talked a little bit about thinking ahead for like what's coming up soon on Patreon. Looking ahead for YouTube, I am going to start doing some stuff with some of those like other like fan-made documentaries and other TV documentaries that touch on Star Wars or parody stuff soon from the Star Wars Home Video Library. I just have very little interest as much in that stuff, but there's some of it in my collection. So I want to try to take a chance to like sit down and actually look through that stuff, watch a lot of it again, get notes for it, and be ready to do episodes on them. I just haven't had the time to actually sit down and do that, especially the stuff that's on VHS, because I have to watch that either by plugging in a VHS player somewhere that we've got stored in our living room, or using the all-region VHS player we have in our kitchen. It's just not a convenient way to watch the VHS stuff at this point. But that is coming up in the near future. We'll keep up with episodes From the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&A, more mini Q&A episodes. I will be doing, after recording this, I will be doing a last episode in my coverage of Tiny Epic Dungeons. I showed the prototype. I then showed the finished version when I got it early and compared that to the prototype, but there were also a bunch of add-ons that shipped with the final game. I'm going to show those add-ons here in a separate video, and hopefully do more stuff with more board game stuff in the near future, though I don't know when. I'm also considering bringing back, at least for a short time, Nate's favorite deck building games, which had ended after covering quite a bit of stuff from like Ascension, which I don't play anymore, DC deck building game, which we still play and which has a current Kickstarter, hence what's kind of getting me into the idea of maybe covering some of the stuff I never got to with that. We covered Star Realms. There's a little bit of new stuff for that. I never got a chance to cover Hero Realms or Hand of Fate Ordeals, so I'd like to get back into those at some point if I can. The key is going to be the test run today, basically, with the add-ons for Tiny Epic Dungeons to see how, during this time of day when I can actually record on a weekend, how everything looks when I set up a table basically right here with the camera set up. Is it feasible to do Nate's favorite deck building games again with that kind of setup instead of in our living room like I used to? If it is, we'll probably see more of those, though probably not super, super often. Probably recorded in batches again. Let's see. We also do, of course, in the near future, sometime have new episodes From the Star Wars Home Video Library coming up that will cover at least some of the new 2022 trilogy set releases. The question is when they actually get to me. So from France, I ordered the one that you can't get in the UK, which is a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray / Blu-ray film disc / Blu-ray bonus disc / I don't think there's a digital copy, so forget that last slash. A 4K / HD / bonus disc trilogy set of each of the 3 trilogies. Those are coming from France. Those have already shipped, I believe, in 2 packages, one by itself and then 2 together. Then from the UK, you've got sort of what you would think of as the other 2 that you would have expected that actually do exist in France, but since they exist in the UK, I got the ones with the English writing on them. Basically, that is a Blu-ray film disc / Blu-ray bonus disc trilogy set for each trilogy, and a DVD-only trilogy set for each trilogy. I have those coming from the UK. They haven't shipped yet. I think it's about another 2 weeks before they actually get released over there. And then from Australia, I have at least one of each trilogy set coming, and I believe that all that I ordered from Australia is there's a 4K set for each, but it's odd in that it's just the 4K film discs with no Blu-ray discs at all for each trilogy, a 3-disc 4K disc set. And I don't know that in fact, I don't think we have in any region seen a Star Wars release that was 4K discs only so far. So kind of cool to see that coming. The Australian ones have all shipped from JB Hi-Fi, so now it's just a matter of waiting for those to show up. So I'm just waiting for all that stuff to come in the mail. That'll probably wind up being multiple episodes. In fact, I know it'll be multiple episodes, just a question of how many multiple episodes from the Star Wars Home Video Library. They're just not in my hands yet. And there are no US equivalents for me to also grab. I would say there is also, and this will be something coming sometime in the coming month or two probably, there was a release in the UK, or I guess in Europe, but particularly in the UK, I know for sure, of some more of those t-shirts from Funko that are in packages designed to look like VHS packaging, although the image on it, in this case, is Boba Fett, which doesn't look like any home video packaging that actually exists, but the box itself is designed to look like VHS packaging. And apparently HMV has an exclusive version with a black shirt inside it, and then everywhere else has a version with a gray shirt inside it. So I have ordered, through actually David Dumbbell, who's helping me out with this, we've ordered each of those so they can then be sort of combined into a shipment when they arrive for him, because none of these places ship to the US. They'll arrive to him in the UK, he'll package them up and send them to me from the UK to the US, so we can get a chance to look at another of those types of kind of weird, here's this non-home video thing playing on home video as its marketing gimmick type of thing like we've done before. So there's more stuff coming, and more stuff that's sort of more mainstream from the Star Wars Home Video Library content coming, but I can't say exactly when, because in this case it's all relying on the speed of various delivery services and whatnot. And then lastly, before we talk sort of the Patreon sort of side topics I was going to talk about here, we have some stuff that, of course, is coming up in the near future with publishing stuff. So you may recall, if you have followed this for a while, that a Saga on Home Video 2nd edition, or even 1st edition, were not my first rodeo in publishing of any kind. Those are both self-published. I had done some self-publishing before and had had some stuff professionally published before. Just depends on which things we were talking about. Well, Arc-Beetle Press, who recently took my Greater Good novel, sci-fi time travel novel, and Echo's novella, which is sort of a political intrigue with a sci-fi twist type of novella, took those two together, put them out as Greater Good and Echoes, which you can find on Amazon. Arc-Beetle Press, who did that, now has the publishing rights for Wars, which I also wrote for years ago. And the Wars Battle of Phobos product line was basically 3 novellas each for the 3 different main human factions leading up to this conflict that sort of is deep in the background and a major event in the background of the old tabletop card game and RPG for Wars. And of those 9 novellas, the 3 lines of 3, I wrote 2 of them. I wrote the first and the second ones for the Earther faction. And eventually, the original publisher took the 3 first ones and then the 3 second ones, and was going to do the 3 third ones, but never got to it. But took the first 3, the first one from each of the 3 factions and combined them into a collected paperback called Preludes. They then took the second one from all three, combined them into a paperback and called it Streddy and put it out. And just with all the stuff going on behind the scenes, with Wars changing hands now as far as the licensing and publishing rights go, Archbeetle Press next month in May 2022, I believe on May 5th, they will be finally re-releasing a new printing of Preludes that includes my story for the Earthers, the first one for the Earther faction called Healers and Hunters. So if you ever want to check out my Wars writing, my fiction writing outside of my original universe with Greater Good and Echoes, that's a place to do it. They have actually retitled the series, got the okay to retitle the series so that instead of it just being Wars, which is really hard to search for anywhere, especially since even searching like Wars Decipher, because Decipher was the company behind the original card game, that doesn't even really work very well, because you wind up getting the Star Wars CCG from Decipher instead of the Wars card game. So they've retitled it specifically for this publishing line, Warsong. Warsong. Warsong, all is one word. So Warsong Phobos, I think it's just called Phobos, not the Battle of Phobos to shorten the title. Warsong Phobos Preludes, which includes my Healers and Hunters novella, will be released through Archbeetle Press on Amazon and elsewhere May 5th. So that'll be kind of cool to finally see that back in print. Of course, A Saga on Home Video 2nd edition is going very well. Thank you very much for all of you who have checked that out. Again, you can find that on Amazon in Kindle, print replica form, in paperback or in hardback for all three of those volumes. I would also say that I am still, as promised, I'm working on that spreadsheet that will allow tracking of collections, as there is no checklist at the back of the 2nd edition like there was in the 1st edition, but that is going very, very slowly, but I am slowly working on it as I get time. I would also note, by the way, and this is not something of mine, but something I did want to put on your radar that I will show you when I actually get my copy in hand. You might recall that in recent memory, I did a podcast interview on the show Skywalking Through Neverland about A Saga on Home Video 2nd edition. And I was talking with the hosts about, among other things, you know, the self-publishing process and the use of Kindle direct publishing and that sort of thing, because they are in the process of getting theirs ready as well. And pre-orders are now up on skywalkingthroughneverland.com for the first of their books, which is Today in Star Wars History Part 1, which is basically Today in Star Wars History daily from January through June. Your daily Star Wars history lesson, which is really kind of a cool sounding book. I'm really intrigued by this. I like the Star Wars chronology type stuff, but I tended to be more about the real world stuff, or excuse me, the fictional stuff, not the real world stuff. The real world stuff, I was really fascinated by Star Wars year by year, but now to have something that is a daily thing, that's going to be really cool. So I wanted to mention that on here in case you are interested in that sort of thing. It should be available in the near future, and they're taking orders for like signed copies and stuff like that. If you want to check that out for pre-order. Again, the pre-order link is over at skywalkingthroughneverland.com, which is the name of the podcast and whatnot.com. Nothing that I'm involved with at all, just a really cool thing that I found interesting, and because I just recently did that conversation where we talked about that, I felt it was appropriate to mention it on here as well. Then before I get into the Patreon-related specific stuff, let's do the real quick, what are you watching, what are you backing, etc., so that those who only care about that sort of thing and the what's coming up and that stuff, you know, that we've already talked about, can go ahead and jump off, but still get a chance to see this part if they're interested. So to get into the what are yous, what are you reading? Right now, I've just caught up. I finally finished the last of the Thrawn Ascendancy books, which is cool. I have a review copy that arrived for Star Wars Brotherhood that I haven't started yet, but I'm going to start that very soon. I need to get into, I think it's Queen's Hope that I have on Kindle. I'm slowly catching up on some of the Star Wars stuff, but on Kindle, as I go to sleep most nights, I'm still reading that lit RPG series that I found very fascinating called The Realms. I'm now through the first 4 books, plus the little side story, I think it's called Dead Must Die. It's like the origin of Simon and the Barrow, if you have read that series. And then I'm going to pick up with book 5 here soon. I bought it on Kindle last night as I was getting ready to go to bed, but I didn't get a chance to start reading it yet. So still reading that. What are you watching? Aside from trying to keep up with stuff like Moon Knight and Picard, only other new big thing I've watched recently was finally getting to see The Batman. I think The Batman was fantastic. I also think it was hella long and hella slow paced. So it's one of those movies where you're like, wow, that was good. Do you want to watch it again? Maybe in a couple years. right? It's one of those things where I don't see myself sitting down and slogging through it. Not because it's a bad film, it keeps your interest the first time you watch it, but boy, is that a slow-paced film. Even the music feels like it was designed to be plodding to get you through the film. So that was a new what are you watching kind of thing. What are you playing? Video game-wise, I have finished my first run-through of Elden Ring, finding the vast majority of stuff. I will say I'm glad I finished it when I did. I believe they have nerfed my thing that I used to get through much of the latter stage of the game, which is there was a thing that was happening where basically you could use this spirit summoning bell, ding, 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 and this little spirit would appear, this little yellow spirit that would slowly work its way to hit the bad guy and wind up, costing them some health. There's also a thing, there's an Ash of War that you could put on your shield, and I had a fully upgraded shield, I forget the name of it, called Carrion Retaliation, where basically if you actually manage to parry an attack, like it's coming at you, like, ugh! You parry the attack, it creates 3 magical blades floating over your head, I think it's 3, that then will attack the nearest enemy. There are other things that create the blades, the magical blades flying over your head that attack the enemy, but this is specifically designed as a low mana, low FP cost thing if you manage to successfully parry an attack. Well, it turns out that if you went ding, 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 and out comes that spirit thing, and you immediately parry through your own attack, poof, you got the blades. And apparently they were scaling, I guess, based on your intelligence value, and I was a mage, so the intelligence value was very high, but also I think scaling based on the weapon level and whatnot, so they were incredibly, insanely powerful in the end game. Like, the final boss of the game kicked my ass a few times, because I had to, like a real final boss, because you have to kind of avoid these massive area attacks and whatnot. But in terms of actually the number of times it needed to be hit to kill it, to win the game, I want to say it was maybe 5 or 6 hits in the entire fight. It's incredibly powerful. I want to say it was like 4 hits for the boss, like the first stage of that fight, where it's sort of like the penultimate boss. I mean, this was an incredibly powerful thing, and I'm pretty sure they nerfed it, because I'm pretty sure it doesn't scale the same way anymore. Granted, I still had a Azure Comet or Azure whatever that I was using before to just plow through the game once I, leveled up enough. But yeah, I think the thing that I used at the end there got nerfed. But suffice to say, I don't know that I'm going to play a New Game Plus. I played a little bit through real quick, but I don't know that I want to spend the time to go fully and explore all the world again. It was a really, really fun game. I am now working my way through Horizon Forbidden West. I am now officially in the West and mostly around the Las Vegas area doing that whole part of the mission. I haven't gotten to like the coastline and all the beautiful vistas or anything yet. I'm still kind of like in desert land right now. And then I've decided I'm not even going to continue where I am in Cyberpunk 2077 that recently got released for PS5, because I forgot most of how it plays and everything, because I barely played it originally and got sucked into Elden Ring. So I'm going to wait, and then I'm just going to restart that sometime in the near future. So that's where my video gaming is right now. My board gaming right now, the most recent stuff I had a chance to play was Bard Sung Arrived, so I've played through the tutorials of Bard Sung now. I have played a bit of Mini Rogue. I don't remember if I mentioned this last time, but Mini Rogue was something I really wanted to play as a solo dungeon crawler type thing, just a very quick one that hopefully will replace One Deck Dungeon in my gaming library. I'm going to play One Deck Dungeon a couple more times to decide whether I'm getting rid of it or not, but it's a very swingy type thing because of the dice rolling and everything. But Mini Rogue was something I wanted to get, but the retail version has you tracking all your stats with cubes on a flat card. Nudge it and the cubes go everywhere. It really drives me insane. So I held out and waited until I could finally find a Kickstarter copy for sale of Mini Rogue, because the Kickstarter version has layered boards with slots to put the cubes in, and finally found one, had a chance to play that. Let's see. Also, I guess I am recently going through and trying to play through the 2 Choose Your Own Adventure games from Z-Man Games. House of Danger and something like War with the Evil Power Master or something like that. I want to play through those so that I can then be like, okay, I'm good, I'm done, and donate them somewhere or give them away or whatever with those. That was mostly inspired by the fact that I'm backing a game that is very heavy narrative-based, which is deeper than that, more mature than that, but again, it's kind of a narrative-based one with like, here's all these skill checks maybe over here, but much of it is about the choices you make in the narrative more so than, say, combat and stuff like that. So I thought, now is the time to check those out, because I'm kind of in that mindset right now anyway. I also, coming up soon, hope to be playing with my wife NHL Power Play, which is a deck building game on the Cerberus engine, the same deck building game system as used for like the DC deck building game, or the Rick and Morty deck building game and stuff like that, except it's designed around sports in this case, which I just ordered. That's on the way to me now. I had forgotten that existed, kind of inspired to check it out by the DC deck building games Kickstarter right now. Which brings us to, what are you backing? Right now I am backing the DC deck building game 10th anniversary Kickstarter. I'm picking up, they've got a new core set for Injustice based on Injustice Gods Among Us, the video game, plus the comics that tie into it, but not Injustice 2 yet. They've got a new Rivals set for Flash versus Reverse Flash. They've got 2 new versions, new variants of redesigned multiverse boxes with a multiverse game mode that fits stuff a little bit better than before, one of which has an exclusive cover. They have 2 new playmats, one for the Injustice version and then one that is just kind of the regular game setup, but uses the same exclusive art as one of the 2 new multiverse boxes. There's also a new crossover pack, number 9, for Bombshells, which is an exclusive stretch goal. Or not exclusive, well, it's exclusive because it's packaged separately, but it's a stretch goal for the campaign. And there's all kinds of new promo and Kickstarter exclusive stuff for it. So I'm grabbing that stuff. If you are into that game but you don't have all the promos from the past, all of the previously released promos, all 15 of them, are available in a pack on that Kickstarter, by the way. The 4 that are coming up in the next month as part of Crisis Collection 1 pre-orders or Crossover Collection 1 pre-orders or ordered separately from the Cryptozoic website, those are not part of what's available during the campaign, but those are still available for pre-order through that website. And then I'm also backing the one that I was talking about narratively, The Dark Quarter, which I wasn't sure about. It took a Quackalope playthrough to really get me interested in for sure backing the game, but I was intrigued by it because there are 2 characters that are crossover characters who appear as Final Girls that you can play as with no miniatures in Final Girls Series 2, which I backed because I love the Final Girl stuff. Covered a lot of Final Girl stuff here on the show, or here on the channel. But I had been sitting back going, well, maybe I just wait until maybe they make the miniatures just for those 2 characters available later, like they've suggested they might do. But then I got enough into that, got enough out of seeing that Quackalope playthrough to be like, you know what? I'm backing The Dark Quarter. So I'm backing those 2 right now, and I expect coming up on May 12th, 10th, whatever it is, I'll be backing Tiny Epic Vikings. Because I always back the Tiny Epic games, but I don't think I'm going to be going all out like I did with Tiny Epic Dungeons with like the honorary producer stuff or anything like that. Okay, now we've gotten through everything other than the Patreon-related side stuff, so if that is all that you care about, right, the stuff that's coming, the stuff that came out, and what are you whatevering, then thank you for your interest, and I will catch you in a month. For those who are more curious about other stuff relating to the Patreon, we have 2 topics to cover, one kind of up in the air, one not so great. The up in the air is the future of the Patreon. Again, I have not decided on this. I will be done releasing commentaries for the Clone Wars in the middle of 2023. I will have already, hopefully by then, also released the ones for Visions as a side series. The question has been, what comes next? Do I just stop it there, or do I make another years-long commitment to doing more commentaries for another series like Rebels? I've been able to calculate that it would take about another 3 years worth of releases, if it's 2 per month, to cover Rebels. I don't know if that is something I intend to do, but watching some old Rebels stuff recently has me, again, intrigued to try to do that with Rebels, so I haven't decided yet. Along with just kind of being intrigued again, though, I also realize that I only have 12 more episodes to record commentaries for Clone Wars, and then 9 for Visions. That's 21 episodes, and I've got basically until probably this time next year before I run out of Clone Wars commentaries being released. Assuming I get them all recorded ahead of time, which of course I'm going to do. Which is like, well, if I was going to make another multi-year commitment to more commentaries for another series, I could get ahead quite a bit if I start recording before the Clone Wars commentaries are even out the door. Especially if I get the Clone Wars stuff recorded soon and start the other one soon. I also recognize that one of the things that changed for me, in the last few years was having a son, right, having a kid. And recording during the day has been a non-existent thing. And I've talked before on the channel about how basically my ability to record video stuff like this tends to be a 1 day, 1 afternoon per week sort of thing now. If that. And then when it comes to recording the commentaries, I tend to wait until everybody's asleep and record at night. But it strikes me that there was a time when my wife would go to work, we didn't have a kid yet, when, granted, work took up most of my day, but I could find break times within my workday to, say, stream a video game or something like that. Take a break for me for like an hour or half an hour, do something for me, and jump back into it. Because technically, even though we are on call 12 hours for every school day, the assumption is it's supposed to be an 8-hour day. There's supposed to be 4 hours in there where you're not actually doing stuff for work, but you never quite know when you're going to be needed, so it's kind of an 8-hour day spread across those 12. At least that is the theory behind the job and why we are paid like regular teachers rather than having to be paid more for the fact that we're on duty 12 hours instead of, 8. But it strikes me that, eventually he's going to be in school. Not, all day, not, everything during the day will be taken up by him being at school, but there will be more opportunities possibly for me during the day to record stuff like commentaries in the future once he is in school. And he doesn't start this fall because of his birthday, but he would presumably start the following fall if we're able to get him into like pre-K or something. Which raises the issue of, well, there would only be a few months in there then between when the Clone Wars commentaries would end, when I might actually have some stuff front-loaded, and when he would be in school and make it easier for me to record like a commentary or two in a given day to prepare for future releases. So there is a possibility there. The door is not completely shut on the idea of doing Rebels commentaries, but I still think part of the issue is that's a lot of work over a long period of time and a long period of releases for a relatively small audience. There's not a lot of people backing the Patreon, and of those who back the Patreon, I don't know how many of them actually bother to listen to the commentary. So I would very much be interested if you're someone who has backed the Patreon, either now or in the past, at the $5 or $10 tier. Let me know. Have you actually listened to the commentaries? What do you think of them? What do you think of their quality level? What do you think of the interest level in them? Do you intend to listen to more of them? Because that also might help me get a sense of whether or not it's worthwhile to continue going forward with more commentaries for something like Rebels. I love Rebels. I enjoy Rebels more than the Clone Wars. Even though the Clone Wars later stuff is really, really good. I enjoy Rebels more. But is that something I should spend that much time doing? Recording almost 80 episodes or something like that of Rebels to release over the span of like 3 years if it's a relatively small audience in order to keep the Patreon going? I don't know the answer to that question, but dynamics will change once he's in school, so I am still considering that at this point. So that is sort of the up in the air part of this. The negative side, I would say, is just to kind of, in terms of, just transparency here, we have had our first individual blocked from the Patreon now. We've had people, like on the YouTube channel, post like random crap or post like flaming crap and whatnot, or, anytime somebody posts anything about, say, Last Jedi or something, knee-jerk reaction, ranting about it that's completely off topic or whatever, and I just been like, you know what, this is not what we want from productive conversation here, hide user from channel, be productive. I've thought about doing that for people whose instinct is like they're a middle schooler in the late 90s to always be like, first! Because I find that incredibly childish and a waste of, the waste of the notification and me going in to look at it. Does anybody even care about that anymore? But people still do it. So I've thought about being like, you know what? No. Feel free to post first and be childish. I will simply hide it. But I haven't yet. But in general, there have been some instances where people are hidden from the channel, from YouTube and whatnot. But at least they can still watch stuff. They just can't post. Or they post, but nobody sees it but them. We haven't ever had to ban anybody from the Patreon, though. But I mentioned in the past that one issue with the Patreon that was another thing that gave me pause was there is a potential and an existence of what you might call a free rider problem. I don't want to go as heavy into it as I did talking to some of the patrons recently, but basically the way that Patreon works is that you pledge for a certain level, and then at the beginning of a given month, it bills everybody all at once for that pledge for that level. And then the next month, the beginning of the month, next month, the beginning of the month. And the assumption is you're going to sign up, be able to immediately get access to content, pay the pledge, and then keep on going. And eventually someday you'll say, okay, well, I'm done, and cancel. Hey, no harm, no foul. But what can happen is, and you can probably imagine this coming a mile away from me describing it like that, is somebody can sign up to get a benefit and then bail before the billing cycle at the beginning of the following month. And essentially do a free rider type of thing. And I don't have the time to constantly check, if I'm going through here to do the Patreon credit thing here, putting the names at the end here and mentioning the names at the beginning of the episode of the update. I don't have the time or the wherewithal to go through and be like, okay, all these names I'm going to say, has everybody had it go through now? Has everybody been here long enough to have it charge them at least once, even if it's only $1? Not enough time in the day to deal with that kind of thing. So there have been people I know who have jumped on, got the thanks here, and then bailed, even at the $1 level, which is basically them going around and kind of playing the system to get a mention, which is pathetic on the one hand, but at the same time, it did create that need for me that I've mentioned before, that when I put together the Patreon credits page for Saga on Home Video 2nd Edition, I made sure that everybody who got thanked on there actually had contributed at some point. They weren't doing the free rider thing. But someone could do the free rider thing and jump on and grab the commentaries and never contribute. Nothing I can really do about that. But what we had this time was somebody who had already created a track record for themselves that was somewhat negative. They had, at least the way that it comes off, had tried to reference me in a video that they did that I didn't know existed, had no knowledge about, knew nothing about the subject of, but just kind of referenced me and then got mad when I didn't mention it in updates here on the channel, after I asked repeatedly for information about what the hell it even was, because I know that if I mention something here, it's going to be seen as promoting. Like the book I mentioned a little bit ago, the Today in Star Wars History thing. That I'm not going to mention or talk about something or link to something or anything like that or tell people where to find something unless I know what the hell it is. And this person refused to provide that information. They simply kept getting irrationally annoyed and pressuring that I hadn't mentioned their stuff, which comes off as them blatantly putting my name in something that has nothing to do with me, specifically so that they could have me promote their stuff on the channel. Very much like a just starting out rapper trying to start beef on Twitter with someone like Eminem in order to try to get the eyes of Eminem's followers on them by starting something so that Eminem replies and it draws attention. I guess, all press is good press or whatever. This is a very small scale. This is like a 6,000 subscriber channel, which is not huge, though big in my eyes. But it just seemed like that was a blatant attempt to do that. And this person then tried to do the free rider thing twice in a month on Patreon. Signed up for the Patreon at the highest level, never apparently intending to actually provide that support, that $10 support, and then jumped in and asked a question for the Q&A video for May. At which point, they immediately canceled without ever contributing anything, and had the nerve to email me to say, hey, when that video comes out, remember to send me a link. Well, no, that's not how it works, Sparky. The way that it works is when you're a member, you access the videos. Because that's how Patreon works. And like, oh, I'll sign back up again. Signs back up. And then, of course, maybe expecting, perhaps, that I will answer because I wasn't going to answer the question at all because they weren't a current member anymore. And maybe they thought that by signing back up again, I was going to record before the billing cycle so they could still try to get it in and kind of free write it and then bail. But I don't record until shortly after the beginning of the month. And now, apparently, I'm going to have to check every single month to make sure that the questions being asked are by people who have actually supported and haven't bailed or something. But sure enough, a few days before recording, came the billing cycle, declined. Did not provide the support. The question did not get answered. And in trying to do the free rider thing twice in the span of, I said a month, it was really a matter of, a couple of weeks, and trying to use that, and then trying to ask a question in a mini Q&A, all to get me to mention that thing they refused to provide information on that I think was them trying to get me to promote their stuff for them. by simply putting my name on it. Add that all together, and yeah, this person was out of the good graces of the Patreon. I'm not going to have the free rider thing happening repeatedly, so we had our first Patreon ban. Typically, Patreon is a place of, at least in my experience, and YouTube is a place of relatively positive conversation, positive interactions. I don't think about the idea that people in the audience might be trying to pull a fast one on me or on anyone else. I assume more of a good graces type of thing. But every so often, yeah, we have people who kind of try to come in and just are bomb throwers who aren't really, constantly watching the channel or want to engage in conversation. They just want to throw some bombs and they get hidden from the channel, that kind of stuff. But I haven't had to ban anybody from the Patreon until now. Although I don't feel too bad about it. So I was like, banning just because they tried the free rider thing? Turns out the very first option when you try to ban someone from the Patreon where you select what reason you're banning them for, the first option is got benefits without providing support from their end, which must happen a lot. The free rider thing must happen a lot with their timing model. But suffice to say, from now on, when it comes to the Patreon exclusive Q&As for the nobility of the Butlerniverse, I am going to have to double check and make sure that everybody whose question gets answered actually is an active supporter and has actively contributed and isn't running the risk of doing the free rider thing, because that takes up my time for someone who's not doing what they should be doing. On the other hand, again, I don't know that I can do anything about the whole free rider thing for denizens, and there's not enough time in the day to do the checking and everything for travelers. I'm not overly concerned with it, but that's another thing. The free rider issue is another of those things that has me thinking that Patreon maybe isn't the way to go continuing forward. I run that risk. And every time I talk about it on here as the free rider thing is a problem, that theoretically could put that in someone's mind as, hey, I could do that, right? Because I'm explaining basically how to rip me off, essentially, if you want to call it that. How to get access to the content without providing the support that's supposed to go with the content. But there's a part of me that says, wow, they really want to do that for like commentaries that I did? They really want to do that for a mention? Kind of pathetic, but whatever, right? Maybe it's not worth my time to be concerned about. But suffice to say, it's another thing kind of putting a question mark over my head. That was supposed to sound like Metal Gear Solid, but it totally didn't. Like over my head, and when it comes to whether the Patreon continues and so on. I don't see that as happening very often, but that whole issue of the potential of a free rider problem has always been a concern, right? Even if somebody does care about the content, in theory, somebody has a way of possibly getting around it too. So, I don't know, but I wanted to share that here. I've shared it with other patrons, particularly the nobility, because it came up in talking about this issue recently. But suffice to say, I will be checking that for the $10 tier, folks. I don't really want to have to check it for the others. I'm trying to not deal with that. So not actually a nail in the Patreon's coffin or anything like that, but it's more like the nail is sitting there and the hammer's like this, and the guy's like, so do I hit it or what? I don't know if that hammer should come down or not to add that nail. It's just another concern. Patreon is a platform with kind of its own issues, as is YouTube, as is anything else, as was podcasting, just through XML files and stuff like that, and RSS feeds. So, I don't know. But I wanted to share that here in the interest of full transparency. We have had our first ban. That was why. That is an issue. That is an issue that Patreon creators have to deal with, and that is something that weighs on my thoughts when it comes to the future of the Patreon once all the Clone Wars stuff has been released, say, middle of next year. Just figured I'd add that to the conversation, keep you in the loop, and maybe some folks will have some ideas of what to do about that, if anything. Though I definitely would like to hear from those who are backers of the Patreon, either here or elsewhere, whether you feel like it has been worthwhile, whether you feel like the commentaries in particular have been worthwhile. I think those who ask the questions on the Q&As have felt like those have been worthwhile, but just be curious to know if it has been worth doing that support over the years. And I guess there's two ways to look at that. There's the, has it been worth it from just a, I'm supporting him because I want to support him side, but there's also the, has the content been worthwhile? Like, I know there are probably people who would support even if there was no content that's exclusive being provided at all. But I'm wondering to what extent that content is being viewed, is being used, is providing a benefit that is valuable to those people who have taken the time and the wherewithal and spent their hard-earned money to back me over on Patreon over the years. So thought I would toss that out there. I know this has been, because of that and because of the what you're playing and that kind of stuff, it wound up being kind of a longer update here. I am going to cut it here and hopefully get some stuff for those add-ons for Tiny Epic Dungeons recorded here. My next step after that, just for those who are interested in it, is I am going to go through and spend part of the day today going through some old Star Wars books, some organizing of some old unwanted stuff that is now sitting in our living room. I'm slowly but surely building up the piles and piles of stuff, or boxes and boxes of stuff that'll be old Star Wars home video stuff, old board game stuff, old book stuff, old non-Star Wars home video stuff all together that I will use eventually for that ButlerCon 2022, as the folks on the Star Wars home video group have come to call it, where basically I just take stuff that I don't want anymore and I offer it out for folks on the Star Wars home video Facebook group to get their hands on. I don't know how I'm going to do that with stuff other than the Star Wars home video. I'll have to ask Justin, who runs the group, whether it's okay to add those into the mix, or if I do that through my personal page, or how I do it. But slowly but surely clearing stuff out here in the office, Star Wars book-wise, and in our living room to make more space for other stuff. And I haven't had a chance to do that lately, but having mentioned it in the From the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&A number 5 and one of the mini Q&As recently, yes, that process does get to finally continue today, which will be nice, even if it's only for a few minutes. So thank you for watching, and hope you have a great month. I am looking forward to the next month, because in a matter of weeks, the seniors will have finished in my classes, most of them, and then right around the time that we're recording, or that I am recording and you are seeing the next of these project updates, our semester will be ending and summer school will be starting. But, you know, it's a transition. It's a good thing. So hopefully you have a great end of April and beginning of May before we speak through an update again. Thanks.